Welcome to this exciting episode of How Startups Can Make Social Impact. My guest today is someone who has been around in the industry for a number of years, and he's going to be talking to us about how he believes startups can make social impact. My guest is Mr. Paschal Offordum, and I'll allow him to introduce himself further. Welcome, Mr. Paschal.
Thank you very much. So my name is Paschal Offordum, and I'm a lawyer by profession and a business strategist and growth ninja working with startups. To date, I've trained over 6,000 startups. I also work with VCs to fund African startups. Currently, I partner with a couple of VCs in the US, UK, and Canada to help fund African startups. I work with Shuja Capital to also help support and groom African startups. Currently, I also work with the Abuja Technology Village as the program manager, where I oversee startups and startup incubation, acceleration, and the whole support and linking them to VC funding. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paschal. I mean, you can see why I said that you should introduce yourself, because the portfolio is very wide and vast, and I'm excited because that means that, you are able to really speak to what we're talking about today, right? And our topic is, how can startups make social impact? As the convener of TEDxMaitama, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of startups, private sector people come and go. What role do you believe startups currently play, especially in our society?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, Farida. So I think at the heart of affairs, I feel that startups are the most important when it comes to the business sector. So when I'm talking about startups, it also relates to small businesses because these people employ most of the population, right? So in terms of social impact, I think startups need all the support they will be able to get, right? That's why it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of support for startups. So if startups are well supported, they will be able to make more impact. In fact, every startup you see today is solving a social problem. At the heart of every startup is a social problem. Let's say, for example, Flutterwave and some of the fintechs started due to specific problem, which is the problem of the unbanked population in Africa. A lot of people are unbanked. Some don't even have bank accounts. Some still hide their money under the beds, right? So Flutterwave is helping to bridge some of this problem and some of the payment problems that small businesses face. So generally, I feel that startups, at the heart of everything they are doing, they are solving a particular social problem. No matter the startup, it starts from solving a problem and then providing that solution. Every single startup is solving a problem, no matter how small.
Thank you so much for that question, for that answer. And I think your example of Flutterwave really just hits home because I know, again, there's a lot around payment systems in Africa that Flutterwave has been able to not just be a pioneer, but also get people to know that it is possible to continue building out of Africa, right? Especially after the status that they've reached. And it's going to lead me to, I think, the second part of the discussion when it comes to this, which is, how do you see the relationship between startups and social influence, right? Because, again, you go into the system trying to solve a problem, and then you realize how deep the problem is or the social issues are. I mean, a typical example is power, right? Power is a major contributor of a lot of the overhead costs that startups have to, incur because there's no stable power. And that leads us to the conversation around fuel and, diesel and all of that. Now, what is the relationship between the social influence that startups end up having and how they're able to use it to tackle societal issues?
So in terms of social influence, I'll just draw back to what I've said. Mm-hmm. When it comes to social influence from startups, right, it's something we cannot neglect, because these people are solving real problems. It's unlike the big corporations, right? They are here to make money.
Yeah.
But startups, for instance, every startup that I've worked with in the past, they are solving huge problems. Just yesterday, we concluded the Abuja Business and Investment Conference, right? It was a 3 days conference from 16, 17, 18,
Yes.
right? Where we had so many investors and so many big businesses and startups. Now, there is one specific startup. You mentioned something about power. So that's why I'm bringing this in. There is this,
Yes.
I think, OmniHub.
Okay.
They are using AI to regulate power, right? This is one of its kind. Like, even the power bank, like they have ranges of products, including a power bank that charges without you having to plug it, like
Interesting.
yeah, so you just place your phone. So imagine lots of these, even meters and all of these things. So these guys are using technology now. In the case of this business, they are using AI to solve some of the problems we face in Africa, and this has to do with power. So for instance, the AI helps you to determine which of the sources of power to switch at a particular time, which one is less expensive at that time, whether it's NEPA, whether it's generator, or whether it's solar. So the AI helps you regulate. They have a lot of products, so let it not seem like I'm marketing them.
Yeah.
Right? But this is to attune the fact that we cannot overemphasize the impact of startups, especially in Africa. A lot of startups are not just solving problems, but they are influencing the whole ecosystem, the whole sector, and changing the ways business are being done. Now we are seeing new, some of the old businesses, the banks, they are beginning to establish hubs or support startup hubs or support startups or even fund them. Now this is actually the way the next phase of CSR is going, right?
Yeah.
These guys, they don't want to phase out, just like Nokia, right? So they are taking the next step to fund startups that might push them out of business.
I see.
So they are supporting them. They have recognized that these guys, in fact, whenever I'm trying to make a payment and someone, okay, I took a drop to this place, right? And the driver was going to give me GT Bank. I said, no, give me OP or Kuda. So that you get the payment. I don't want to hear you didn't get the payment.
Yes.
So that's the kind of influence. That's the kind of impact that these startups, for the past how many weeks, some banks, I don't want to mention names, right? So many banks have been having payment issues. To the extent I paid to a particular bank for like 2 weeks now. The payment is still hanging.
Wow.
So if anyone is going to make a payment now, I specifically request for fintechs. Whether it's OPay, Kuda, you get it there and then. For the past 3 years now, thereabout, I've been using Kuda. I don't know their office. I don't know. I just send, whenever I have an issue, I send a mail. And that's the kind of influence. But imagine you are going, okay, I was going to speak to a program on a particular webinar for a particular big bank. And they want me to open an account. And it's the same process. I will have to few forms and I told them, no, I can't do it. No, like we've passed that level of stress.
True.
Like I want to work with some banks, but once it comes to that stress, I tell them no, I can't do it. My first bank has been having some issues for some years. It's been a year or 2 years, but I've not had the time to go. So that's the kind of influence
the startups can have.
Yeah, like in life already, we are seeing that human beings are having shorter attention span.
Yes.
And we don't want stress, but some of these big corporates don't understand it.
Sure.
And that's where the startups are fitting in and gaining the heart of the customers.
Because they're feeling that gap.
They are feeling that gap. And once you fill that gap, you've gotten the heart of the customers, you will continue to influence more than the big corporates.
Wow, that's a lot to think about. And I think what you said is very valid around how we're past certain things, right? Technology, AI, machine learning has really brought a new dynamic to things. And if we want to compete with the rest of the world, then we have to be at a certain level. And you're right, startups are minding the gap, right? They're filling out that gap, so it's going to be very difficult. I think my next question is going to be around CSR strategy, especially for startups, right? A lot of startups, like you said, they go into business to solve a problem, but at the same time, they're not non-profit, right? They need to be able to be making money because their overheads are high. They need to pay their employees well, so many things. How can a startup actually create a CSR strategy that would help them give back to the society without feeling like, they've given up their profit?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. When it comes to startups and CSR, I think for me, I feel that CSR is at the heart of every startup operating, right? Because these guys are building businesses based on social impact, based on solving problems, whether it's environmental, whether it's social problems. So they don't need to, it's not like the oil companies that they are mining oil or they are doing anything with oil, then they have to create a separate educational CSR. No, these guys have CSR at the center of what they are doing. Let's take, for instance, Ingressive Capital is a VC firm, and they also have Ingressive Foundation, right? Ingressive Foundation funds young guys going into tech. Ingressive Capital funds businesses, startups. Now the foundation even help these guys that want to build startup even before they build the business. So let's say, for example, in the next 5 years, I want to launch a startup to be funded by Ingressive Capital. Now I'm getting a scholarship to learn how to code.
Yes.
So I learned through Ingressive Capital. Even before I launch the startup, I already have a connection, a relationship with Ingressive Capital. So this is the kind of foresight that startups are having. Before you even come in contact with dealing business with them already, they've created a pipeline to get you in. So Ingressive supports people that are coming into tech even before they think of getting funds or even launching a business, right? So these are the kind of startups that we are seeing these days. Like they already built this at the heart of what they and that's what Flutterwave and these guys do. They are funding developers communities even before these guys come into their company or have anything to do with them. They are supporting developers community to have better developers, better guys in fintech and tech generally. So startups are building social impact and CSR at the center of what they are doing, right? They don't need to start doing a different CSR because even the problem they are solving, because before you even get a fund from a VC firm, you have to send in a pitch deck. You have to pitch, right? And one of the first things the VC firm wants to see is the problem you are solving and the market for that problem. There has to be a large market. Nobody wants to bet their money in a losing market. It has to be a problem, and it has to be a problem that will grow. Right? So that's why I told you that at the heart of every startup, CSR is because they are solving a particular problem. No VC firm is likely to fund you if you are not solving a problem, because that shows that people are willing to part with their money for that product. So this is built. So it's unlike other corporations that are just there to make money, maybe find a way to give back to the community. Startups are already doing their CSR, the social impact, and it's already built in the entire system.
That's an interesting take. I would have looked at it differently, but I love the fact that you brought this perspective into the mix, right? Which again begs the question around an inside-out approach, right, when it comes to CSR. We've seen a number of accusations online. I would not want to mention names, right, around how a lot of these big startups, big businesses are not very keen on, employee well-being, right? And so it begs the question, if the work that they're doing is very outward facing, right, and solves other societal problems, but then the people who they are responsible for are complaining about, either poor working conditions or other things around it, what do you think startups can do to be able to balance that, right? Again, bearing in mind that these are some of the startups that have hundreds or thousands of employees that, are looking up to them, or, their household income and well-being is tied to them, right? So they're making money on the outside, they're doing a lot of corporate social responsibility, a lot of branding and support, but the people who are working with them have a lot of complaints around how they're taking care of them, right? What do you think they need to do to be able to balance that? So not just CSR on the outside, but also even with the people that you are responsible for.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So I feel when it comes to internal CSR, right, African startups or Nigerian startups are not just the only companies having issues in this specific area. It's global, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you don't have a strong governing board, right? Because if you have a board that vets everything you do, right, there are some actions that you would want to pass.
Yes.
The board will hold you. But the problem we've seen is that most startups, in quotes, don't have boards or maybe advisors and people they are accountable to. I know that you are the CEO, right? You are the founder of the company, but having someone to hold you accountable, right, will help you keep some things in checks. I worked with a couple of startups, right? I advised them. Now, what I got to understand is that if you don't hold, especially the founders, in check, a lot of things will go wrong. They might make a lot of money, but in the process of trying to make quick money, they might even lose.
Wow.
So that's the importance of board. So I'm bringing it here, right? The board, there has to be a board. There has to be a board of advisors holding the founders accountable. It's not just a Nigerian issue, because every startup will take the character of the founders even before they have a policy for the company. For example, if I'm launching a startup and I work all through like 24 hours, I'm likely to push that kind of trait into the new startup, right? I would like everybody to work as hard as I work. So that's why it's very important that startup founders are mindful of the character or trait they are pushing into the new bin, which is the startup, because any character that moves from the founder to the startups is likely to be sustained, right? So they have to be mindful of such character and hold them. I know it's very, very hard for you to relinquish some control to a board, but then it's for the betterment of the country, of the startup in the long term, right? So I'll just admonish founders. I know it's a hard thing, right? Once you have a board, the board will hold you accountable when it comes to taking certain actions. So I feel that one, having good advisors is just like in Nigeria. Most of the challenges we are facing are due to bad advisors around some of our leaders, right? So startups, if you have your fellow, it's just like in the Bible, but I will not go to that because this is not a church. So it's the kind of advisors.
Yes.
If you have in fact, of recent, I had to set up a board for TEDxMaitama.
Oh wow.
It's not like I need it, but when you have elderly people around you, it makes a difference.
Sure.
Over the past 7 years, I've worked specifically. In fact, I I mingle more with elderly people than
wow.
people of my age, because it's better to learn from people's experiences than having to make the mistakes yourself.
True, very true.
So that's why I relate more with elderly people. So I just launched an advisory board for TEDxMaitama just on 5th October.
Wow.
So that makes certain things easy. I could have held all the power, right? But then I'm submitting myself to a board to help things go fine, even in the long term. So it's something I will advise every startup to do if they want the sustainability of their company.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. And I really like the fact that you touched on work culture and mentorship. I feel like these are two vital things, right? That really help startups, like you said, not to make the mistakes, because someone has already made it, so you need to learn from it. But also it comes back to, deflating your ego, right? And being able to submit to someone who knows more than you do. So that's really interesting. And I love the fact that, that rounds up, towards the end of our conversation, which is, what does the future look like for startups, especially around what we've spoken about, right? CSR, social impact, and balancing, the two. What do you think the future looks like for the startup ecosystem?
So I think for the startup ecosystem, CSR and social impact, we are going to see a lot of startups building social impact at the heart of what they are doing. Right? Because right now there are talks around sustainability, climate change, and all of those things. So I don't need to build a business differently and then start building another different foundation or another initiative just for the sake of CSR.
Yes.
Startups are building it at the center of what they are doing to put into consideration inequality, sustainability, social impact, giving back to this. Just like the example I've given, Ingressive Capital, they are not a startup, it's a VC firm, it's one of the top VC firms in Africa. But they've created like an ecosystem that brings in people that want to learn tech into the system even before they think of creating a company. So that by the time they are done learning tech and they want to create a company, they are already in the pipeline of this organization that have built them. So it's easier for these people to Ingressive Capital to attract unique developers that they've trained. Right? So it makes things easier. But then these guys don't look at it that way, but they've had a foresight of bringing these people. And so this is Ingressive Foundation helping to train people in tech, whereas in the long run, they are also hoping to profit from these people when they launch their business or bring their startup to be funded. So we are seeing startups creating this kind of ecosystem, supporting people even before they come into their sales funnel, creating an ecosystem. We also see people like Andela and all these people, they train people in tech skills even before you come to them to learn tech or for them to hire you, and they've already brought you into the funnel. So it's more like they are creating an ecosystem even before they turn these people to be clients. And also we are seeing more startups doing this, building social impact at the heart of what they are doing, and helping the society in giving back even before these people convert to become their customers.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, this was a very power-packed conversation. I'm not surprised, of course, with your experience. It's just, I'm excited for our viewers when they do get to listen to you speak. Your perspective and your approach on things, I think, is really unique. And we thank you so much for your time, for coming to share your wisdom with us. And I'm sure that we'll have a lot of questions for you from our viewers. And I hope that you'll be available to respond to it. Thank you so much again, Mr. Paschal Offordum, for being here with us today. I mean, just to recap, StartUP. It's been a very interesting conversation, but I think one of the things that I want to touch on that he's mentioned is the importance of mentorship, right? And the understanding that a lot of startups actually come into business with social impact in mind. So they don't necessarily have to have a different CSR strategy. However, they need to understand the importance of having a governing board. They need to be able to balance, the future and the present, and also look at how they can continue to share wisdom and knowledge on different levels and support the society that they are trying to influence and make profit from. This has been an exciting episode, and I look forward to sharing more with you. Once again, my name is Farida Yahaya, and I'm the lead tutor at the Brief Academy. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you on the next episode.